So with that second little Prime Day they had on Amazon, people might wonder, well, what did you buy, Digi?
This is the best day of my life. This is great.
Went back old school.
What the hell is even that?
Maybe saying, well, what the hell is even this? It's a SONOFF S31. These have been around for quite a while, but that's the reason they've been around for a while, and they still sell them. They're good. They're ESP8266 plugs with power monitoring, and the cool part is you can pop them open, unscrew them, and without any soldering, flash Tasmota, ESPHome, bring them local into Home Assistant without the cloud. Yes, make it your hardware since you paid for it. So in this video, we're going to go back to some fundamentals for using this with Home Assistant, doing some power monitoring. I'm going to break it up because I know there's some new people out there that haven't seen how to do this, and things just, change and get easier. Like I said, we're doing no soldering. We're just going to use some little clips. Going to show one chapter. We're going to show through Tasmota, and we're going to bring it into Home Assistant. And then I'll show another chapter how we do it with ESPHome. So, you can take and pick what chapter you want. That way you can make the decision whether you want to use Tasmota or ESPHome with this plug. So let's get to it. Oh, before you click off, well, say you don't live in the US and you don't have a cool S31, probably can hang around and learn something as well, because this is going to apply to several other different IT SONOFF products as well. So of course, what do you need to flash the S31? Well, you need the S31 itself. And do keep in mind all of the procedures and everything that can be used for other devices. So if you don't have this specific one, you could use like a Shelly or something else that can be serial flashed. And if you're not really sure, well, let's figure out what serial flash exactly is. So next, of course, you need the little red guy. Now, there have a bunch of different ones of this. These are referred to as a USB TTL. And get a little closer. We'll definitely get closer soon. So this just takes the USB connection from your computer and basically turns it into these wires so it can put your firmware and get rid of the cloud crap on these. So there are a few other pieces. You don't need them all, but it does make it easy to do your device. If you don't want to do this, well, find the link down below. You can go check out Cloud Free Shop. There's a couple other places, the ESPHome, etc. I think Cloud Free even does the S31 pre-flash for you. ESPHome and stuff have some pre-flash plugs as well. But this is a good thing to learn. You can recover your devices and do your own thing. Now, there is another one I use. It's a little more pricey, but it's a little more versatile as well. It's the VoltLog, the VoltLink USB TTL adapter. I really love this one. It's high powered, has lots of pins, and does all the things. But I understand, yes, this one's kind of hard to get out, but I'll leave the link down for attendee for this one. We're going to use this one for the sake of everybody can get this off of Amazon or AliExpress or whatever. I do like to use a USB cable with a switch, and do make sure that this is a data passing one. And the reason why I like this is you can turn off this USB TTL adapter without having to unplug and plug it from the computer, because sometimes you will have to power cycle things and check things and everything. It makes it so easy. I went with years of flashing devices, and when the first time I did this, I'm like, damn, I was doing this wrong the whole time. Now, we won't be using any type of jig. I know they have some other 3D printed parts. I've made these jigs for people in the past. These was for some other ESP chips, but they do have some clips that can help out with this, but you really don't need that because of where the pins are at. And where we're going to lead to is the Clippy Boys. Now, I don't have the specific ones that have the DuPont jumpers on them. And what is that exactly? Is basically we're going to take this little clip. You can see that there. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can get a better look at things. You'll see the little copper clip comes out. And that's actually going to clip onto the pads on the S31. Now, I do take these and clip them right to the pin. They're usually okay for the most part, but it can be a pain. They do make a model of these clippy boys that actually have a clip on them, and then they have the DuPont jumpers on the end. They'll have the female here, so then you can just plug them right in. Now, to hold everything, I like this little guy. It's one of those helping hand things. This just a bunch of little clips. These are pretty awesome. Don't ask me to pronounce the name. Omnifixio or something like that. I found these online, and they were kind of pricey, but hell, they're freaking worth it with all the different features it does. Now, they do have the readily available ones, the little helping hands, and these are just, no, it's not something off of a Marvel movie, but you just move them around and then you can clip things to them and you can hold things, especially is great for soldering, but we won't be doing any soldering here. Now, opening this guy is, you do need a spudger. And the great thing about this S31 plug is the beauty right here is the ability to open this without any tearing it up or glue or anything like that. So really what you do is just take and pop this part off right here. Yep, sometimes it flies. And then you'll see these little pieces here. They just slide right out to expose something you don't normally see on a plug. Yep, Phillips screws. There are 3 of them that you need to take out. Don't lose the screws. And then once you get the screws out, all you do is grab the prongs and it should just slide right on out. You don't need this. There's the S31 plug, the relay, the prongs, everything there. And this is what we're going to focus on right here. You'll notice they conveniently have the pads at the very edge of the board here. Now we're going to be using ground. We're going to skip these 2. We're going to use TX, RX, and VCC. And don't be scared. That's basically transmit, receive. VCC is like the positive. That's going to feed that 3.3 volts from the USB TTL. Now, how do you do that? Just take the clip. And it can be somewhat difficult if you're just holding this in your hand like it is. That's why one of those little helping hands helps out tremendously. Because once you just take and clip that on there like so, it's going to stay on there. And so now you have VCC going to it, and we'll attach that to the USB TTL adapter. Lots of acronyms here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the little helping hands, and then we're going to clip to VCC, RX, TX, and ground. So remember, let's skip those 2 in the middle, and we're just going to use the 4. The 5th, we need to put it in a boot mode, kind of like on the BIOS on a computer when you want to get in to go change stuff, where you have to keep hitting delete at the beginning or F12. Basically, that's kind of like what this is. You're going to hold this down when we apply power. That's where that USB switch comes into play, because you can just click as you're holding it down, hold it down for a couple seconds, and then you'll be in boot mode. And it's that easy to put ESPHome or Tasmota right on this device and take it out the cloud. Now do make sure that when you're putting the clips on, that you actually do get the clips actually touching the metal pad as shown there. It may have to move things around if you don't get it right, but no big deal. Basically, you just don't want to have this VCC one touching some ground, but there's nothing really ground around there. So pretty safe there. Now, next thing you'll see on this little guy, you see we got 3V3 at the top. You got TXD, RXD, then ground. I bent my 5-volt pin on purpose. That's just more to protect me from myself, because we rarely need to use 5 volts in the ESP world. So I bent it out the way. That way I couldn't screw up and send 5 volts to something I didn't need to. So now what we want to do is, if you look at your colors on your actual S31, do remember that the blue and the yellow I use as RX and TX. So my blue goes to RX on the S31, and so you need to switch those because you want the receive to be on the transmit and transmit to be on receive. You do both of those backwards. Kind of like how you use your ear to listen to someone talking and then the vice versa. And I'm just going to clip mine to here and click my red to there. Now, if you had the DuPont ones, you would just slide them right on. A lot easier with those. And then my black goes to the ground. So now we have everything connected up and done. I know it looks kind of like a little mess, but you can see how easily this is, not having to solder anything and just plug it straight up. And now we're going to plug it up to the actual USB cable like so. And then we'll plug this into the computer, load up any drivers we need to. In case you haven't done this before, check your Windows settings or update settings if it's saying there's any optional drivers for the actual USB TTL. Once you do turn it on, you do need those. So this is the same for ESPHome, Tasmota, etc. You pick the firmware you want. There's pros and cons to both. Try them out both because you never know which one you like or dislike. So you'll find the chapters down at the bottom. You can jump to Tasmota or ESPHome and go from there. So if you do get stuck on anything, you need the setup or you need some more of the links, whatever it may be, I've covered this S31 stuff before, but things change and things definitely get easier with loading the firmware on these different devices. Got all that on my website. You can find it under devices, and then under plugs, you'll see SONOFF S31. You have all the Tasmota stuff. Then you even have the ESPHome, YAML, pictures, the whole 9 there. So we're going to go into, for the Tasmota one on this one, if you are looking for ESPHome installation, skip ahead to the next chapter. So I do recommend using the web installer. Of course, I'll leave that link down below. You can find it on their GitHub, etc. But the really easy part about this, there's no downloads for it, is remember the USB switch? Do remember that the button on the front, and you just try to be careful not to, touch a whole lot of things or knock your clips off. You want to do is press that button and then turn the power on to that USB TTL adapter at the same time. And all you have to do is hold the button down for like maybe a second or two, and then you can let up. I'm just going to go ahead and pick the default one, Tasmota English, and hit connect. And it should show your TTL. We're going to hit that. Like I say, if not, you're not seeing your TTL adapter, do go check your connections, make sure the USB is coming online. And then if you're using Windows, do make sure, go look in your device manager. The driver may not be loaded. A lot of times you can just go to Windows Update and it will auto detect. It might be in the optional ones and you'll just load that driver. But worst comes to worst, you need to go get the CP2102 if you're using this little red guy, and get the Scilabs driver and install it manually. So we'll hit connect, and then we'll hit install Tasmota. If you don't have the connections right, this is where you're going to find out. I'm going to say erase device and hit next. And say install, and it's going to prepare installation, and it should start flashing to the device. If you've got to the erasing part, you know you have it right. If you didn't get it, gives you an error, well then you can try to hold that button down and redo the power off and then turn it back on with the button held down. Try that, check your clips, make sure you do have RX and TX transposed, etc. And it should just start doing the install. Once you do it the first time, it's really simple on doing additional ones. So once it's completed, there is a cool feature of Tasmota, but we cannot use it on this S31 plug because the power monitoring chip is talking over the console, and it really starts to screw stuff up, and you won't be able to talk to it and say, hey, I need to put in the Wi-Fi information. Sometimes it works. Let's see if we can get it. I don't know if it is. See if we can just go ahead and power cycle it. So I did power cycle it and try to hit connect again, and it does give me the option. it does show it's installed, so maybe this might just work. Let's do change Wi-Fi, and it actually does work pretty awesome. Like I say, things are always changing. And so I'm gonna go ahead and pick my Wi-Fi and put my password in. Now, of course, if you didn't want to do this method, you could just power cycle it, and you could just use the access point mode, and you could use like your phone or whatever and go tie into it and put your Wi-Fi password in that way. But since we have serial, let's just type it in instead. We ain't gotta mess with all that stuff. You continue, and let's say visit device. That's pretty cool. It already has the IP address. I don't have to go dig off for that device. That's pretty damn awesome. Definitely have made things a lot easier. So now you're probably going, well, I'm used to Tasmota. I'm gonna go grab a template and go on the website. What? You don't need a template. It's the S31. Watch. Configuration, configure module, and right here in the list, SONOFF S31. Don't change anything right here. Just hit save. And boom, power monitoring is there. Now, if you do want to get it really, really close, I did leave the feature here. Is you can go into the Tasmota calibration procedure, and it goes through, and you can go through and set your, like with a 60-watt bulb, it's great for being able to get it exactly where you need to be. But for the most part, I did find the S31s are pretty damn close out the box. So at this point, we have Tasmota on, it's on our Wi-Fi. I do want to test the relay, and I want to make sure this works. So I'm going to pull the pins and stuff off of this, and then we can put it on. We can, because never connect the S31 to mains power and using your little TTL USB adapter at the same time. I guarantee you'll have a bad experience, really bad, with smoking something, so don't do it. Once you have Tasmota on your plug, you're on mains power. I do have a lamp connected to it with a 60-watt incandescent bulb. Yeah, it's hard to find those sometimes, but they're perfect for doing and checking calibrations on these things. So if we want to check it out, we can just, of course, we're in the GUI of it on the web browser, Chrome, whatever it may be, and you hit toggle, and give it a second. It will pop in the voltage, the wattage, and everything there. Now, the way this is designed, the voltage doesn't show all the time, but there are some set options. You can turn stuff on like that. And, well, we need to go bring this into Home Assistant now. I'm going to turn the lamp off. We don't need it burning. So the first thing, really, what I like to do is go to Configuration and go to Configure Other, and give it a decent name. Just don't leave it Tasmota. And so I'm going to go call it just like plug Tas S31. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this same name here. I may get some double entities. It's been a while since I've brought this into Home Assistant, but we'll see here what happens. So we'll hit save. There it is at the top. Then we need to configure MQTT. Yeah, if you haven't done anything MQTT like Zigbee or whatever it may be, don't get, really scared of it. You really just need to install MQTT. I know a lot of people are using HOS out there. Go to your add-ons and go pick MQTT, hit install. You can leave it all the defaults and just make sure it's running on your machine. Now, if you're doing the Docker Compose, Docker container thing, you do need to manually install MQTT, Mosquito, whatever it may be, Eclipse, whatever different ones you want. Do make sure that you do have persistence turned on, enabled, and it's writing actually to the file. It's a whole different deal. If you don't know what you're doing with that part and you want to check persistence, probably more the scope of this video, just come jump into Discord using the link down in the video description. Will help you make sure that your persistence is working. Why is that so important? That's where your config is actually going to be stored. Anytime you rebooted Home Assistant, it would drop all that stuff. You have to reboot all your plugs. It's a true pain in the ass. Make sure your persistence works. So go to configuration, go to MQTT. This is where you're going to put in your host. That's the host of where MQTT is running. I use a DNS name, but if you want to use the IP address, that's fine. Leave the port there, leave the client there. The user, now it's very important, if you're using HOS, any user that's pretty much in your system, I like to just, if you're using that, just go make a user that you're going to like MQTT user or something like that. And it'll automatically, build into MQTT, and you can use that user and password there. So the topic, I like to give it something more than just Tasmota underscore than the last bit of the MAC ID. I'm just going to give it the same thing here and copy and paste and leave the full topic and hit save. Did it connect to MQTT? I don't know. I'll show you how to check. We can go to console. And if you look here, does it say MQTT or MQT connected? If in fact it does, you have it right and it's ready to go. Now, one thing I do like to turn on is the power delta. And that's basically going to make it report. And I'm going to show you what it does without the power delta. How do we put it into Home Assistant? Well, it's already in there probably. I have mine in a little sidebar here, but because I lose it all the time. Integrations, go to MQTT. Well, not MQTT, I'm getting myself confused. Under Tasmota. You should be able to find it. You have a big ass list like me. Well, how about we use search? There's our plug there. And you can see we have all the things there. There's the controls and there's the wattage. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on. You can see it lit up my desk there. Now you'll notice we could actually just sit here, and we're not. I'm sure I could talk a lot. And there's no wattage being shown. You say, well, is it broke? Is that a problem? Yeah, it is a problem. What if you need to know if it turned the power on right away? Well, there are a couple things, and why does this happen? As I'll show you right here in the GUI of Tasmota. Now, that's the one thing different about Tasmota. Everything is saved in the plug. It's not compiled. So if you go to look configuration, configure logging, I think. Yeah, here it is. Telemetry period. It's set to 300 seconds. So only every 300 seconds is it's going to report out the new energy settings. Well, that sucks. I want it to change when there's a percentage. Or, hey, what is a number of watts? Power delta, and you can see I've typed it many times before. And we'll do power delta, say 5. And that's going to be like a 5% change. There is, if you do more than 100, it's going to be like the number of watt change. So you could do like power delta 110 would be when there's a 10 watt change. Depends on what your load is. And now when we go over into Home Assistant and we turn it off, and then we go turn it on, you'll see it's going to jump up the wattage a little bit quicker. There's the 60 watts. There's where half an amp. We have all the things so we can do like automations based on that power wattage and everything. And we turn it off, you should see it drop fairly quickly, which it does. So that's the power of the power delta. So if you decided to go with ESPHome on the S31 or whatever other device it is, it's a little bit harder to kind of start up because the modules aren't really built in. But, there are a couple websites. I think there's ESPHome devices. I have several configs on my website. It's all the little YAML already coded for you, but sometimes you have to do that yourself if no one else has done it before you. If you haven't done with ESPHome before, you can just come in here to ESPHome.io. And you go in and put the add-on. It's really simple to go through. But this whole video really isn't going to be for like getting started with ESPHome. Maybe I'll do something in the future. I know there's a lot of new people to ESPHome, and there's several different ways to do things. So with that, if you go into the ESPHome dashboard, you need to create a new device. So we're going to do this, a new device, and I'm going to say continue. I'm going to read the big page of stuff. Plug-S31 test. Sounds good. So we'll hit next. And this is where it gets confusing. I wish they had a blank option on here. But we'll just go ahead and pick. You can pick anything out of here. It doesn't matter. You're going to overwrite everything anyway. See, it's kind of stupid. So yeah, I don't use the encryption keys. That's more, I say, for using this on a public network. But do be careful if you use those encryption keys and the OTA keys, because you can lock yourself out of a device and you got to do the serial thing all over again. So I'm going to say skip for now. and go find this device plug S31 test and hit edit. So here we are, the little out of the box thing. You can see it's got all the keys and stuff like that, but I'm just going to go jump on over here to the config that I have. So under devices and plugs, scrolling down, I should have the ESPHome YAML. You can just hit the little copy button here. Yep, you know the drill. Control A, select all, hit delete, it's gone, and we're gonna paste in everything so you can see that little thing was stupid at the beginning. So I need to change the names. I don't want it to be the same exact name I had. I just have this test and test. You can change the names, do the friendly names, etc. When it comes down to some of this other stuff, now there are a couple things you may want to change in here, like the SSID and password. You'll notice those aren't really set to mine. It's a secret file. If you're not familiar with the secrets, I'll show you up in the secret in the main screen. I have an additional one I use on the AP password. That would be if you lose Wi-Fi, reboot your router or access points. They're going to fall into that access point mode, and then they'll have a password on them so no one can just like jump on and do whatever they want with them. It depends on who your neighbors are. But that AP password needs to be in your secrets file. You won't really need to change any of this unless you really want to get nitty gritty down here, like the number of decimals and all that good stuff there. You can leave it all like it is. So we'll hit save. And so the secrets, you see the secrets up here? No, I'm not going to click and show you my secrets on the video. Maybe we'll scroll down. So that's pretty much all it is right here is the secrets file. You'll have, like, say, Wi-Fi, my SSID, my pass, and then you'll use that secret key in all the YAML files. That way it's a one-stop shop just for that setting. So if you're putting the same setting on something a lot, the secrets is perfect for that, even though if it's not really a secret. So once you're doing here, you can hit the install. I like to go make sure. I wish they had a validate up there. I wish they had a whole lot of things here like folders and you could hide stuff and maybe you had a list instead of stupid squares, but that's a whole big wish list. So let's just go over here and hit the 3 dots and let's hit validate. That's going to just check your code, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to compile. It means it looks good to compile. Sometimes it fails to compile. There's multiple ways to install this thing. I use my way. You're going to find somebody else does another way, but I like to see the actual compile go through instead of just sitting here staring at it as a little spinning thing. So I go ahead and hit install, and I like to hit manual download. Now you can plug it into this computer. I don't know. Let's just, for the sake of the video, nothing scripted. Let's hit plug into this computer and let's see what it does. They may have changed something, but I doubt it. This is what I was talking about. It preparing download, and then you don't know if it's compiling or not. Is there an error? Did you mess up on something? Is something with the libraries down? That's not your problem. You don't know because it's just a spinning thing. I'll go back and do the other way. So let's do it the tried and true way. Is just go ahead and hit install and hit manual download. It's going to go through, it's going to download all the little libraries and everything, and it's going to start compiling and doing all the cool things like it should be. Depending on your computer or whatever you may be using, it may take a while to compile, especially if it's your very first device, because it has to pull all those little libraries down and it doesn't have everything cached. So once it's done downloading, it's going to download that bin file to your computer. If you don't see it automatically download, you can just download again. It'll just probably add like another number to the end of the file. Do pay attention on which one you do flash if you've been changing a lot of stuff in it. So how do we flash this thing? Well, there's a bunch of old cool tools you can use. I don't recommend them. This way you can use and do everything, even ESP32 like you should. So learn this method. If you go to web.esphome.io, of course I'll leave that link. If you don't remember it, I also have it on my website under, ironically, the ESP32 installation procedures, but it's pretty close for the ESP8266. Before we hit connect, we do need to make sure and power up our adapter up there, and we need to put it into bootloader mode. That's just holding down the button. So, 2 hands, That puts it into bootloader mode. We'll hit connect. So it's going to ask us if you have more than one, like I just had, do make sure you don't have multiple of these. You may flash the wrong device. That's a friend told me of that one time. So click this, hit connect. Don't do the prepare for first use. That leads down a whole different rabbit hole. And then we're not getting out of that one. Install is what I want. We're going to say choose file. Now the file is just downloaded to your computer. That's that plug S31 test. You can see it's got the number 1 after it, and then hit install. It's going to go through doing the erasing. If you don't get this part on here, you probably messed up on some of your pins up there. You didn't transpose RX and TX. You can try to swap them around or just kind of follow your wires. Look for something that fell off. Maybe your big hands meshed it with the button when you're trying to hold it and turn it on. Just check everything and reposition and start over. And don't forget, cut power, hold the button and turn power on. While you're holding the button, count to 2 and then let off the button. And that's configuration is installed. A lot of times you do need to actually go in there and power cycle it because it's still potentially in bootloader mode. So if I come back to the ESPHome dashboard, I'm probably not seeing it online yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off using that little switch. You can see where that little switch for the USB comes in handy. Turn it back on. We're gonna wait a few seconds and see if plug S31 test goes to online. Now, a lot of times if you have some MDNS issues, you may need to go to your configuration and turn on ping, especially if you have multiple VLANs, you don't have an MDNS repeater, you have some DHCP issues. It's going to have a whole deal. The ping usually works pretty decent if you go in the configuration for your add-on or the Docker container. But you can see mine came up. I can hit logs. Clearly, we have the device on ESPHome at this point. So really at this point, once you see it up, you can pull the pins from it and you can go ahead and go in there and we're going to put it on mains power and then we're going to add it into Home Assistant and get it online. So now that once you do have the plug on mains power, you can see we got it back on the network. I do have it connected to a lamp with a 60-watt incandescent bulb. It's a great little thing for testing, if you can really find them anymore, right? To get it in Home Assistant, it's not that difficult. So open up Home Assistant. If you have auto discovery, which is defaulted to be on, a lot of times you will have that plug waiting for it to be configured. If it is not showing, you may need to hit add integration and type in ESPHome, and then look, it's already showing this discovered, say, no, I want to set up a different one, but yours will probably just say, hey, look, it's going to ask for the host. The host is going to be the IP or the name of the plug. So if you don't know that maybe your names aren't resolving, you will need to put the IP address of it in there. Ours is resolving, working with auto discovery. We're just going to hit configure, and it's going to ask us here, hit submit, hit success, area. I don't care about the area. I'm hitting finish. Boom, it's done. It's in. It's that difficult. Sarcasm a little bit. So once we come in here to devices, we have our plug S31 test. Now, don't mind, it may say that there's nothing there. You're just being too quick. Hit refresh. Give it a second. It's going to pop in. There's the relay, and here's the amps showing. There's even the button, the daily energy, the voltage, the watts, etc. You can add all this to the dashboard, whatever you want to do with it. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it on. Of course, we get that nice warm white color from the bulbs. Can't believe we use these things. And give it a second. It will auto update. And this is a 60-watt bulb. I think it probably just needs to climb a little bit further. Yeah, there's the 60 watts there. And so we're getting half an amp, normal for 120 volts, and rock and roll. And that's it. Everything's in there, the daily energy, you can do everything you want. It's in Home Assistant, ready to go, local control. And if you really want to dig into it, you can also come back in here and hit visit. You can go to the web GUI of the plug itself. So hopefully you did learn something about how to take a regular ESP-based device, manually flash it. Nothing scary. throw ESPHome or Tasmota. You maybe saw the difference between Tasmota or ESPHome. You haven't tried either or. Well, this might be a good opportunity to see which one works best for you. I use both because sometimes I want to use it in one project. Sometimes I want to use it in the other project. It just depends which one is easier to deploy for the project. But pick the one that works for you, the one that you like. So, of course, you'll find all the product links to everything down below. I do appreciate that. It does help support the channel. There's no additional cost for you because most of those are affiliate links. But like I said, there's no additional cost to you for using those. And, well, that's going to about do it for this one. If you got any other questions, comments, or other things you'd like to see us do, definitely shoot me down a comment down below. Come join our Discord. It's free. Do whatever. And yeah, I do appreciate all the Patreon subscribers, YouTube members. We definitely couldn't do it without you. And yep, y'all know all the drills. Press all them buttons down there. And y'all take care.